Hello, we are Siri and Mercedes, and today we are going to talk about the intra-European migration after the World War II. Well, starting with the introduction, we have to say that after the devastation of the World War II, Europe experiences loss of migration flows. Millions of people were displaced due to war, economic hardship, religion, and political reconfigurations. The post-war period led various waves of migrations, including the movement of refugees, labor migrants, and ethnic minorities. These migrations played a crucial role in shaping the political, economic, and social landscape of modern Europe after the World War II. Well, war aftermath and displacement. By the 90s, approximately 20 million of Europeans were displaced due to border changes and forced expulsions. Ethnic Germans from Eastern Europe were expelled from countries, for example, Poland, Romania, and the Soviet Union, leading to a large migration and relocation into Germany. Jews and other Holocaust survivors sought new refugees in Western Europe or immigrating at Americas. So, while the economic reconstructions and labor shortages, we can say first that the European economy required a large workforce to rebuild the war losses at the nations. Also, countries like Germany, France, and the UK recruited labor migrants from Southern Europe, that are Italy, Spain, Portugal, and later from Turkey and North Africa. The European Economic Community (EEC), founded at the 90s, also has facilitated labor mobility within Western Europe. Passing through the political factors and Cold War divisions, the migration to Eastern Europe was restricted by the communist regime, so many migrators look for migrating to West Europe. Socialist governments such as of East Europe, Poland, East Germany, and etc., limited the migration to West Europe. These restrictions were applied by strict border controls and more. One example we can give is the Berlin Wall that has been constructed to prevent mass migration to West Germany. Political refugees from communist regimes, particularly Hungary and Czechoslovakia, sought asylum also in Western Europe.
Now I'm going to talk about phases of migration. The migration trends evolved through different periods. Migration in Europe after World War II happened in different periods, each by political, economic, and social factors. Let's go through them one by one. The first phase is called War Adjustment Period from 1942 to 1954. The immediate aftermath of the war was chaotic. Around 12 to 14 million ethnic Germans were expelled from Eastern European countries. Many displaced persons, for example, former prisoners of war, forced laborers, and concentration camp survivors, had nowhere to go. The second phase is called labor migration from 1955 to 1973. After the war, Western European countries began rebuilding their economies. There was a huge demand for labor, but the local workforce was not enough. Germany started the Gastarbeiter program, which was a system for bringing in foreign workers from Southern Europe, Turkey, and later North Africa to help with labor shortages. France and the UK also brought in laborers from former colonies in North Africa and the Caribbean. These migrants often worked in construction, manufacturing, and mining, helping rebuild war-torn cities and infrastructure. At the time, many European governments assumed these migrants would return home after a few years. However, many ended up staying permanently, which led to later policy changes. The third phase is called migration restrictions and family reunification from 1973 to 1989. The oil crisis of 1973 caused an economic downturn, leading many countries to tighten their immigration laws. Programs like Germany's Gastarbeiter system and France's labor recruitment were largely suspended. As a result, family reunification became the main form of migration, shifting migration patterns from temporary labor migration to permanent settlement. Governments had to adapt to this new reality by introducing policies on integration, citizenship, and social rights for migrant communities. And lastly, we have post-socialist migration from 1989 to 2000. The fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989 and the collapse of the Soviet Union completely changed migration patterns in Europe. East-west migration increased as people from former communist countries looked for better economic opportunities in Western Europe. Germany, for example, received a large number of ethnic Germans from Poland, Romania, and Russia. In 1995, the Schengen Agreement started, removing border checks between many European countries and allowing free movement. This helped create today's European migration policies. Let's move on impacts of migration on Europe. One of the biggest impacts of migration was economic. Post-war Europe faced severe labor shortages and migrants played a vital role in rebuilding economies. Their contributions were key to the economic growth of Western Europe in the post-war decades. However, there were also challenges. Many of these jobs were low paid and physically demanding, and migrants often work in harsh conditions. Despite this, they helped shape the modern European economy. Migration also transformed the social and cultural landscape of Europe. Many cities became more multicultural, with migrants bringing their own languages, traditions, and cuisines. However, integration was not always easy. Migrants often faced housing discrimination, leading to social segregation. They also struggled with unemployment as their qualifications were not always recognized. Over time, governments introduced policies to improve integration, such as language courses and equal education opportunities. However, social tensions still remained. The rise of immigration also led to political debates and policy changes. Some people welcome migrants as essential for economic growth. Others, however, feared that immigration would affect national identity and social stability. As a result of that, some European governments introduced stricter immigration controls, especially after economic downturns like the 1973 oil crisis. At the same time, the European Union worked to coordinate migration policies, trying to balance economic needs with integration efforts. Migration policies are still changing, influenced by history and current
So,
politics.
well, in summary, migration has both positive and challenging effects on Europe. First, it helps to rebuild economies, but also created social tensions. By the other hand, it made Europe more multicultural, but integration has taken a lot of time. Also, nowadays isn't completely 100% of integration. And politically, it led to debate on national identity and new policies on migration management.
By understanding these historical migration trends, we can better understand the migration challenges in Europe faces today.
Well, thank you for listening to our presentation.
Thank you.